You think that when you signed the papers and drove that car off the lot, you bought the whole thing, bumper to bumper. Every bolt, every wire, every last piece of what makes it move. That's the deal. You paid, and now it's yours. For the metal, that's true. For the part that actually decides what your car will and won't do, that part isn't yours the same way. It didn't come home with you free and clear. It stayed with the people who built the car, and they wrote down in advance exactly what you're allowed to do with it. Most folks never read those words. And here's the strange part. Those words are sitting in your paperwork right now. You own the car, somebody else owns the software, and the fine print is the place where those two facts meet, usually without you noticing. If you're the kind of person who keeps a car 10, 12, 15 years, and I've got a feeling that's you, the next few minutes are worth your time. Stay with me on this one. I'm Ellen. I read the fine print so nobody has to do it alone. Quick note before we keep going. I put what I've learned about all of this, what your car really costs you, and where every one of those numbers is actually written down into a book called What the Record Actually Says About Your Car. The link's sitting in the description under this video. If any of this ever makes you wish you'd known it sooner, that's exactly what it's for. Now, let's look at what you actually bought. Start with a number, because it reframes everything that comes after. A modern car runs on roughly 100 million lines of software code. That's not a figure I'm reaching for to sound dramatic. Engineers have been repeating it for years. The trade press, the automakers themselves, university researchers. To put it in scale, the avionics in a modern passenger jet run on a small fraction of that. Your car has more code in it than the plane you'd be nervous to fly in. All that code runs across a network of little computers buried in the body of the vehicle. Somewhere between 70 and 100 of them in a typical new car, tucked into the doors, the dash, the seats, the engine bay. They talk to each other constantly. They decide how hard the brakes grab, how the transmission shifts, when the airbag fires, whether the lane keeping nudges the wheel. The engine used to be the heart of the car. Now it's the code. The metal is just the body the code lives in. So when you buy the thing, here's what actually happens, and it's two separate transactions wearing one signature. The first one, you understand. Title to the physical goods transfers to you. The steel, the glass, the seats, the tires. That's a sale, plain and clear. It's yours to keep, sell, paint purple, park in a field. Nobody argues about that part. The second transaction is the one nobody explains at the desk. The software that makes all that metal do anything you don't buy it. You're licensed to use it. And a license is not ownership. A license is permission. Permission to use something that still belongs to somebody else under the conditions they set. You've actually seen this language your whole life. Every time you've clicked I agree on a phone, a laptop, a game, there's a line in there that says something like, this software is licensed, not sold. Car software works the same way. The code in your dashboard, the code running your safety systems, the code behind that touchscreen, it came to you under a license with terms attached. Terms you agreed to whether you read them or not. And that's the whole hinge of this. Ownership and control are not the same thing. You own the car, they kept control of the part that runs it. Now you might be thinking, fine, it's a legal technicality, who cares? The car works. And for a long stretch of automotive history, you'd have been right to shrug. Let me back up for a second though, because there's a reason this stopped being a technicality and started being a lever somebody can actually pull. The reason is copyright. Software code is a creative work under the law, the same category as a book or a song, which means it's protected by copyright, and the company that wrote it holds that copyright. That alone wouldn't matter much to you. But in 1998, Congress passed a law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and tucked inside it is a provision. You can find it as Section 1201 of Title 17 of the U.S. Code that changed the whole game. Here's what that section does, in plain English. It makes it illegal to break, bypass, or work around a digital lock that a company puts on its copyrighted work. Not just illegal to steal the work, illegal to pick the lock, even on a copy you paid for. Sit with that, because it's the mechanism underneath this entire story. Your car's software is copyrighted. The manufacturer puts a digital lock on it, encryption, authentication, whatever keeps you from getting in and changing things. And federal law says you're not allowed to defeat that lock without permission. So even though the car is parked in your driveway, even though you hold the title, the code inside it is walled off, and the wall has the force of copyright law behind it. That's why "they own the software" isn't just a phrase in a contract. It's got teeth. The teeth come from a copyright statute most car buyers have never heard of. There's a Congressional Research Service report from 2024 that lays this out directly. It says, and I'm putting this in my own words, that because computer code is a copyrightable work, Section 1201 and the rest of copyright law generally stop people from getting into vehicle software without the manufacturer's permission first. That's not a conspiracy website. That's Congress's own research arm, describing the state of the law to lawmakers. Now, before anyone accuses me of painting this as some airtight trap with no way out, it isn't, and I want to be fair about that. There's a pressure release valve built into the law, and it's worth knowing about because it's a place where the system actually works for you. Every 3 years, the U.S. Copyright Office runs a review. People and companies petition it, arguing that the anti-circumvention rule is unfairly blocking things they have a legitimate right to do. If they make the case, the Librarian of Congress can grant a temporary exemption, a carve-out that says, for the next 3 years, you're allowed to break this particular lock for this particular reason. And vehicle repair has won exemptions in these reviews. The most recent one wrapped up in October of 2024. It was the 9th of these 3-year cycles. The final rule took effect at the end of that month. It renewed the exemption that lets you, or a shop working for you, get into your vehicle's software to diagnose, repair, and maintain it. And it added a new one, broader than before, covering access to your car's operational and telematics data, the diagnostic information the vehicle generates, not just for repair, but more generally. The people who run that process even confirm the exemption reaches beyond the owner to whoever's doing the work on the owner's behalf. So the picture isn't hopeless. The lock is real, the law backing it is real, but there are legal doors cut into the wall, and repair is one of them. Keep that in your back pocket, because it matters for the payload at the end. Here's the thing though, those exemptions are temporary, 3 years, then they have to be argued all over again. And they're narrow, they cover specific activities, defined carefully, not a blanket right to do whatever you want with your own car's code. The default, the thing the law assumes, unless somebody fights for an exception, is still that the software is locked and you stay out. All right. That's the machinery. Let me show you what it looks like when it reaches your driveway, because this stops being abstract fast. The cleanest example is the subscription. You've probably heard about this one already, and it made people genuinely angry, for good reason. A few years back, BMW started charging some owners a monthly fee to turn on their heated seats, not to install heated seats. The seats were already in the car. The heating elements were already in the car. You'd already paid for that hardware when you bought the vehicle. But the software switch that turned it on lived behind a paywall around $18 a month in the markets where they tried it. It never rolled out in the United States, but it ran in the United Kingdom, Germany, South Korea, and a few other places. People would go to warm their seats on a cold morning and hit a payment screen for a part they already physically owned. The reaction was exactly what you'd expect. Customers said, out loud and repeatedly, "The hardware's in my car, I already paid, why am I paying again?" By September of 2023, BMW walked it back. Their own sales chief admitted people felt like they were paying twice, and the company dropped the idea of charging for hardware features already sitting in the vehicle. That's a win worth naming. Pushback worked. But notice what that episode proved. The only reason a company can charge you a monthly fee for a part you already own is that they kept control of the software switch. The metal is yours, the permission to use the metal is theirs to grant, and theirs to rent back to you. And it didn't stop with warm seats. Mercedes rolled out something they call acceleration increase for some of their electric models. Here's how it works. You pay $1,200 a year a subscription every year, and your car gets faster, 20 to 24% more power depending on the model. 0 to 60 drops by nearly a full second. Now, here's the part that tells you everything. Mercedes was upfront that this involves no new hardware. None. The motor is already capable of the extra output. The car left the factory able to do this. All $1,200 a year buys you is a software change that unlocks power the vehicle already had. Stop paying, and the car quietly goes back to being slower. You're not buying performance, you're renting permission to use performance that's already sitting under your own hood. That's the model laid bare. The capability is built in, the switch is licensed, and the switch is where the money is. Let me give you a picture, because I think this is where it gets under your skin. Imagine you buy a used electric car from a dealer, not a fly-by-night operation, a real lot. You take it for a test drive, and the fancy driver assistance package works beautifully. It's listed right there on the window sticker, part of what you're paying for. You sign the papers, you drive it home, it's yours. 3 weeks later, you get in, and the feature's gone. Just gone. A message on the screen says your vehicle was reviewed and reconfigured. The thing you paid for, the thing that was advertised, the thing that was working the day you bought it, switched off from somewhere far away by someone you never spoke to. That's not a hypothetical I invented to scare you. That happened. Back in 2020, a man bought a used Tesla Model S from a dealer. The dealer had bought it at an auction run by Tesla itself, and at that point, the car had 2 driver assist packages on it, worth about $8,000 combined. You could see them right on the car's original sticker. A few days after the auction, Tesla ran a remote audit of the vehicle, and when the software updated later, those features were pulled off the car. The new owner reached out asking why, and the answer he got was, essentially, our records show you didn't pay for these, so we removed them. He'd bought a car with those features listed and working. Somebody flipped a switch from a distance and took them away. It got sorted out eventually, but mostly because it blew up publicly. The question that hung in the air afterward is the one worth holding on to. What about everybody who isn't in the headlines? If the manufacturer can reach into a car it no longer owns and change what it does, then who's really in control of that vehicle? That's the sharp edge of licensed not sold. It's not just that you can't get into the code, it's that they can, remotely, on their schedule, on their terms. So let me be careful here, because this is exactly the spot where it's easy to go too far, and I don't want to do that. What's confirmed is straightforward. The code in your car is licensed, not sold. Copyright law, specifically that Section 1201, puts real legal weight behind the lock on it. Manufacturers keep the ability to gate features, meter them out as subscriptions, and in connected cars, change or disable things from a distance. All of that is documented. None of it is speculation. What I am not going to tell you is that there's some coordinated plan in a boardroom to strip ownership away from the American driver. I've seen no evidence of that, and I'm not going to pretend I have. What there is, instead, is a set of aligned incentives. Software gives manufacturers a recurring revenue stream where they used to make a one-time sale. Copyright law hands them the control to protect it. Connected cars give them the reach to enforce it. Nobody has to hold a secret meeting for all of that to point in the same direction. Aligned incentives don't need a plan, they just need to be left alone. And to be genuinely fair, because this channel doesn't do one-sided, the manufacturers have real arguments, and some of them are good. Start with the obvious one. That code is expensive to write, and it's genuinely theirs. 100 million lines of software represents years of work and enormous investment. Copyright protecting it isn't some scam. It's the same protection a novelist or a musician gets, applied to a different kind of creative work. If anyone could copy, alter, and redistribute a car's software freely, the argument goes, the incentive to build good software collapses. Then there's safety, and this one has teeth too. Your car's software runs the brakes, the steering assist, the airbags. Automakers argue that letting untrained people or random third parties freely rewrite that code is a real danger, and they've got a powerful ally on this point. When Massachusetts tried to force open access to vehicle data, I'll get to that in a second, the federal safety regulator, NHTSA, actually warned in 2023 that wide-open remote access to a car's systems could let a bad actor command vehicles to behave dangerously, maybe many at once. That's not the industry talking. That's the government's own safety agency raising a security flag. It's a serious point, and honesty requires putting it on the table. There's also a convenience argument, and it's fair as far as it goes. That same lockdown connected software is what lets a manufacturer fix a safety defect with an over-the-air update instead of mailing you a recall notice and making you drive to a dealer. It's what lets them patch a bug overnight while your car sits in the garage. The control that lets them charge you for heated seats is the same control that lets them repair a dangerous flaw without you lifting a finger. You can't fully have one without the other. And the subscription defenders will say, look, some people would rather pay a little each month than a lot up front. And options are good, not bad. That's a real preference for some buyers. I'll grant it. So the picture's genuinely mixed. The exact same architecture that can work against you can also work for you. The question isn't whether the software should be controlled at all. It's who gets to decide the terms and how much of that decision you get any say in. Which is where the fight is actually happening right now, out in the open, in public documents you can read. There's a movement called Right to Repair, and cars are one of its main battlegrounds. Back in 2020, Massachusetts voters passed a ballot measure question 1 with about 75% voting yes. It required automakers to give car owners and independent shops access to the vehicle's mechanical and diagnostic data, the same access the dealer's service department gets. The automakers sued to block it, and that case has been grinding through federal court for years. As recently as early 2026, it was still being argued on appeal. Maine passed its own version by an even wider margin in 2023. So this is contested, it's live, and ordinary voters have weighed in hard on the side of access. At the federal level, there's a bill called the Repair Act. It's been reintroduced in the current Congress. You can find it as House Bill 1566, with a companion in the Senate as Bill 1379. What it aims to do is guarantee that you and the independent shop of your choosing get the same data and tools the dealership gets, so the manufacturer can't quietly funnel all your repairs back to them by locking everyone else out. It's had bipartisan support and it's cleared committee steps, but it is not law yet, and I want to be precise about that. It's a proposal moving through the process, not a done deal. If somebody tells you it's already the law, they're wrong. Go check the status yourself, and I'll tell you exactly where in a moment. All right. Let me put something in your hands, because a video that only tells you the walls are closing in and then leaves you there isn't worth your time, and it isn't what I do. Here's what you can actually do, and none of it requires you to become a lawyer. First, the next time you buy a car, or if you've got a few minutes with the one you already own, go find the software terms. They exist. Look in your purchase paperwork and in your owner's manual. There's often a section on the vehicle's software, its data practices, and connected services. You're reading for a few specific things. Is the software license non-transferable, meaning it doesn't cleanly pass to the next owner? Are there features that run on a subscription, and what happens to them if you stop paying or when you sell? And is there language letting the manufacturer modify, update, or disable functions remotely? You don't have to like what you find, but you should know it's there before you sign, not 3 weeks after. Second, understand that with a connected car, you're not just buying a machine. You're entering an ongoing relationship with the company that made it, on terms they mostly wrote. Ask the salesperson plainly which features are subscriptions and which are yours outright for the life of the car. Get the answer before money changes hands. A feature that's included and a feature that's included for now are two very different things. Third, if you care about being able to repair your own vehicle or use the shop you trust instead of only the dealer, this is a thing you can follow and even weigh in on. The Repair Act, House Bill 1566 in the current Congress, has its full text, its sponsors, and its live status posted for free at congress.gov. The Massachusetts and Maine laws are public record too. This isn't happening in the dark. It's happening in documents with your name's interest all over them if you go look. And now the receipts, because you should never just take my word for it. The lock I described lives in Section 1201 of Title 17 of the U.S. Code. That's the anti-circumvention rule. The repair carve-out lives in the U.S. Copyright Office's 9th triennial rulemaking, the final rule from October of 2024, and you can read the whole thing on the Copyright Office's own website. The federal repair bill is House Bill 1566 at congress.gov. Every one of those is free. Every one of those has a number attached. And every one of those says what I just told you it says. Go read them. The document is the expert, not me. Here's where I'll leave you. The car in your driveway is a genuinely remarkable machine. And most of what it does well and safely because of that software. I'm not here to tell you to be afraid of your own car. My own car is 12 years old, and I trust it fine. What I am telling you is smaller and more useful than fear. It's this. The word own got quietly split in two somewhere in the last couple of decades, and nobody sat you down to explain it. You own the metal, the code that runs the metal, your license to use, on terms written by someone else, backed by a copyright law most people have never heard of. That's not the end of the world, but it's the truth, and it's worth knowing, because the terms of that split are being argued right now, and the people arguing to open it back up could genuinely use you paying attention. So read the fine print. It's already in your glove box. It's already in your paperwork. It was there the whole time. I'm Ellen. If knowing what you actually signed is the kind of thing you'd rather find out before the salesperson's gone home, you know where to find me. This has been the Owner's Report.